Welcome back. This is Genesis with Sozo Education and Beauty Supply, and today we are doing a full tutorial of start to finish my scrub cubes. So I would also like to apologize ahead of time if I start coughing for some reason. I am using a throat lozenge right now to try to help with that, but I have been sick, so I need to get back into normal. So in my strainer thing that's right there, I have organic sugar. The granules are a little bit larger in there, which I really prefer in this recipe. And even if there were little bits and pieces that would be on top of the strainer, I would dump those into. I just want to make sure that there's no large chunks in there for whatever reason. Because the mold that I use for my scrub cubes is a little bit smaller. So we don't want to have a huge chunk of either like the whipped soap base or the scrub. So mixing these really well is important. In that little cup, I have all of my liquid ingredients, which I used the whipped soap base from Bath Fizz and Foam, and it's the tweaked version. And then to that, I would also add cocoa butter and glycerin. So I warm up the glycerin until it's melted, and then I add the glycerin and the fragrance into that particular jar that you see there. This little tool is super freaking cool. I got it from Lotion Crafters, and I will definitely put the link to this one and the other one in the description. I really prefer this one. Before, I was using a soap frother, which it was like okay. However, if you're using anything with surfactants, it is going to like bubble that up a little bit and incorporate air into that mixture. So I had seen this on their website and reached out to them because they didn't really have any pictures or anything with it. And I absolutely love it. It's meant for doing like smaller batches. So for me, it is perfect with this. And I say smaller batches kind of lightly, but because this particular recipe that I'm using for the scrub cubes, I get like 300 of them, I want to say, or maybe like 450, I guess. So it's still a smaller amount of liquid products to basically use. This one is the other one that they had on their website, and I can see using this one as well. However, that blade that is on there definitely causes more lifting up as you are mixing the mixture. Whereas the other one, it agitates it, but it doesn't cause it to rise really fast. And that's huge because if this was a little bit fuller, then I wouldn't want it to come up out of the container. And both of them are battery operated, so I'm just using the rechargeables. I really, really wish that they had it where you can, plug it in and charge it with the USB thing. But either way, both of them do really, really well with this type of application. So I'm super happy with them. And you can see here, so that would have been, I guess, just the cocoa butter and the fragrance. Then I guess typically I would do all of them in there at the same time. So maybe I was just mixing the cocoa butter. This is the bad thing to me about going through and doing the voiceovers, is because I wasn't in that moment. Yeah, so I bet you what happened is that there was just a little bit of a chunk of the cocoa butter in there. So I was trying to mix it to be able to break that up in there before I added the other things into there. The fragrance is definitely always the last thing I add, just to help the cocoa butter cool down a little bit. And I do keep a track of the vanilla content in what I'm using, because if it is a higher percentage, I will use a vanilla stabilizer in there as well. I follow the instructions that are on the vanilla stabilizer as far as how many grams that you should use. So if you need more information or help on that, please let me know. These ones are eucalyptus from Nurture Soap. And here I'm showing you the different tops that I put on there because I prefer to use these since we're only measuring out like a few grams. So in the, this is 1.5 times the recipe. So it's 26 grams of the fragrance, which is, a smaller amount. So if I can use one of those tops instead of pouring it in and, possibly miscalculating, I think it's totally worth it to switch out every one of my tops. And I have found pretty much a standard in between Nature's Garden and Nurture Soap. And there's the other one. There's another brand, Brambleberry, I had used at one point in time, but I really don't like their bottles. So here I'm showing you the label that I put on to every one of mine, and that is the IFRA chart. So I know for each category, since I make different things, what I need for that. And then I also put the vanilla percentage over off to the side, which in this one it's 0. And here, what I'm talking about is for this category, it's 9, and I can use like up to 5% basically. And in my recipe, the amount of fragrance is 1.53%. So I am well within the limits of usage. I don't have to use less fragrance for this particular recipe. And this is why I love having it on the bottle. And I just put some clear tape, packing tape around the outside of it to try to help from spills and things of that nature. Now in the mixer that I am mixing, that is the whipped soap base, the tweaked version of it, which the tweaked version is even more tweaked a little bit. I try to use the least amount of water possible, or basically, as a suggestion from Robin, I cook the crap out of it in the crock pot to make sure that as much of the water is evaporated out of it. So if there's condensation left on the lid, I will keep cooking it even longer, and then I wipe the condensation off, put the lid back on, see how much is coming out from it. And that kind of has to do with how hard or firm that I need these to be. And the more that I can get rid of all of the water in that stage, the less cure time that these need at the end. So I add in all of the oils and, the glycerin, the fragrance, whatever, into that main mix and get that incorporated really well. It really doesn't matter if you whip the ever living crap out of this, because we're not having to worry about it like falling per se, since we're not piping it into another jar like you would typically do with the whipped soap base. And once I've got all that mixed in well, I will then add in the sugar to it and make sure it's whipped in there good as well. But once it's incorporated, you want to stop. This over time, as you are doing the piping, it is going to firm up a little bit. So we want it to stay a little bit more malleable, but it starts to cure, I guess, would be the best word for it. So your hands on the piping bag, keeping it warm, will kind of help you with this. But the larger batches that you do, the more you need to be aware of kind of working efficiently. So these ones are going to be a green in color, and it's going to be a solid green. So that is why I'm going to add it at this point in time, which all those little tubes that you see in the background, I actually take the dyes, disperse them in the warm water, and then put them in here so I could use like a drop of the color. So if you're going to do that, you need to make sure that you're using the distilled water, and it needs to be warm so that way the color droplet can fully be the color that it is supposed to be. And if I were going to do multiple different colors, then I would take this whole entire mixture, put it into the bowl that I'm going to use to pipe out of. And from that point, I would drop one color on one side and one color on the other side and very gently and strategically mix them so it will kind of incorporate but still be able to be marbled in the end result. Sounds like a lot of work, but it's really simple. And with the strength that I make these dyes in, you really only need that one drop. And like literally for the blue, and so I guess it would be blue 1 and red. I don't remember if it's 27 or 28 with the dyes. But I use like not even a whole drop. Like I put a drop onto a toothpick and then I basically take that and add it into there. So I think the next time I do both of those colorants, I will actually use less when I'm making my little dropper bottles. I believe that one was apple green from Fizz in Canada. And I bought those dyes when I very first started, and I still have not gone through them all. Some people do add preservatives to their little mixture too, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But all of my jars are like cleaned and sterilized before I go and use them. You just like spray them with alcohol, and I haven't had an issue with any type of mold growth with them. So cross your fingers, you know. But it is something that you could do as an extra preventative. Just make sure that you're putting that on your labels for everything you would use this in at that point in time. So I'm going to scrape everything off of here, and then we will put it into a larger container and then transfer everything into a piping bag. Or I kind of wanted to experiment a little bit with a different technique of being able to put it into the molds, which, as you will see, I very quickly abandoned that. But I'm always looking for a way to maybe make this quicker. So that's where that came from. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the process. And again, sorry I had a microphone fail and I'm having to go back and do this. So hopefully I've given all the information, and I will provide the recipe in the description as well. And keep in mind, I am always tweaking this. So, use it as a base and then make it your own. Alrighty, we are back. So I have my silicone cubey things out here, and I typically would put them, like I 3D printed this thing. Nectaria gave me the file to be able to print it. So I made it basically be as large as humanly possible. I don't know if these were like 12-inch bags or something. I don't know, but the bags are really big. And this is super lightweight, so I absolutely love it. So I typically would do that, but I wanted to test out this other situation. So typically I would pipe in each one of them. But I wanted to see like how good this would work. And I don't know if it's going to be any faster or not to be able to pack them like this instead of using my piping bag. Because I do have carpal tunnel issues, and maybe possibly it might be easier to do it this way. The only slight like disadvantage, I think, is that they might get more mixed up this way. But I don't know. If you guys can think of anything else, other cooler ways to do something like this, please share, because this is probably the most time-consuming part of this whole situation, and I don't know how I feel about it. I definitely find that like you don't want to overload your bag, because you think it's going to be less time consuming if you don't do that, or if you do that, I guess. And it's not, because it's so much harder to be able to control. Do I abandon this? I think I'm going to abandon this. Only because I feel like, again, it's mixing the colors too much. And I don't think time-wise it's going to be more efficient. So I'm going to load up approximately half of this mixture into my bowl. And holy moly eucalyptus. That's all I can say. These are definitely some super strong, I was about to say bath bombs. I wonder, like with the eucalyptus fragrance. Oh, you know what? I might be able to do, I think I can load this whole mixture in here, because this batch I did smaller than my other one. I may regret this decision. Okay, I'm going to stick to what I first said and not. Oh no, but see how little that is in there? So never mind, I'm going to go back. So I typically would make more, but I have a lot of fragrances that I need to do, and I only have so many of these cube things, the silicone molds. So I need to kind of switch gears with that. I don't want to buy more of those molds, but I just need to start planning my time better in the future of being able to make these things. And I'm really trying to work on like a work schedule where, let's say, because my days off supposedly are Tuesdays and Sundays. And so, you know, say on the first Tuesday of the month or something, I'm going to work on all of my bath bombs that I need to work on and replace and whatever. And then on the first Tuesday of the month, I'm going to work on scrub cubes or whatever. I really, really need to get that under control because I think it's going to make me overall work more efficient because you have different ingredients and different processes or whatever, you know, so I can make, say, 2 different fragrances and have a crap ton of those 2 different fragrances, which in the end is going to be like the best thing. So I take about ½ inch off the bag or so. And this is definitely fuller, but it's not going to be too bad. And when I typically start with these, I start at the top and squeezy in there. Don't know. I hold it. Yeah. Not that this part is super complicated, but I squeeze like with my bottom hand more while the top hand just holds the bag in place. And then I also switch back and forth because again, with the carpal tunnel, I don't want to aggravate it. And I'm really not trying to be perfect with this part. I just want to try to start my nozzle lower. So that way it fills up the bottom square parts of this better. And then I will use that frosting tool thing that I was just using to smooth over everything on top and make sure that it's filled in. So if I get my process going that way, because I know I have enough to make a crap ton of like 2 different fragrances of this, then I can like wash them and dry them in between, and that way they will always be like completely dry and have it be less work, I guess, by the time that I go to create the next ones. So we'll see. I'm still working on it because I still work, you know, more than full time as a nail tech and single mom, trying to cook. So I am trying to learn how to balance all of those different things while this is going to be my retirement plan. So I need to build up this business, and that means working extra hard right now at everything, right? As we all do. Actually probably should, well, yeah, let's, I will finish one of these. I'm just going to lay that like right there to show you how I finish it. And that way you don't have to watch me pipe the whole entire thing. So I'm going to like hold this edge of this and just kind of gently scrape over. Those did not have as much in it. So I'm kind of going back over that one. And then I'm going to come back again. I'm using the excess on here to fill in the tops. Gently glide over. I also use like, I don't know what it's technically called. It's kind of like an unmolding plate, but I got it down the baking aisle. And I like using that as well. So I'm just trying to slide over and smooth these out. Any of the extra, I will press into another mold. Blah, blah, blah. This is like the insert, was it Jeopardy? The dee 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 dee. Because my brain definitely is like all of the concentration with this. Again, take off the excess onto another mold, and I'm just kind of eyeballing and seeing if there's any ones which need a little bit more, and try to make them overall like pretty smooth. Okay, so not perfect, but pretty smooth. So this one's going to be done, and then I will be back to show you how I finish process them when I am popping them out of the molds. Welcome back to the next step of the scrub cube. So I do not put like a little label-y thing in each and every one of them, but out of like the stack of 4 or something like that, I will put a label on these. Basically, I took business card things and then laminated them, and when I write on them with permanent marker, you can then wipe off the permanent marker with alcohol when you want to change it, so I'm not going through a million post-it notes. And then I also have ones that have CBD on them, so if I was gonna if I did fresh cut roses in CBD flavor, then I know that that part of it's already labeled essentially and taken care of. So these are the eucalyptus ones, and even though I try to make each color be like a little bit different from each other, so if I have like 10 different scents out there at one point in time of these, that they all kind of have their own identity, doesn't always work that way, because at the moment I have caramel apple butter also in my tray thing that is waiting to dry, and because of that it is also green, because I decided that I wanted to do green caramel apples. So we need to make sure that we like properly label these things, because you think you're going to remember and be able to smell it and go, yeah, this is what this is, but it doesn't work out like that. So I'm going to do some shaky bakey with the scrub cubes, and then I use the bigger colander because of that large greatest sugar. And like, see that one, how it's stuck together? I'm just going to break it apart, and then like as I'm shaking this around, that'll get coated a little bit as it strains everything out. So like so. And then I've got my tray over here, and I will start dumping them out on there. This is really like, you know, nothing super particular. And then it's super easy just to toss that back in there. And I really don't find that I have to, excuse me, change this out that often. As far as like, it's very rare that clumps of these will get into there, and so you'll see like little green bits or something like that. I don't try to keep it full, but just replace it as necessary. And if I do, at the end of straining everything, if I do find, you know, some other color pieces in there or something, then I will take them out, like kind of hand go through it. But I don't have to change out my sugar for every single fragrance. Like, what sticks to them sticks to them, essentially. so you don't have to worry about like scent transfer. But I actually consume a pretty good amount of sugar this way, so it's not really an issue. And man, with this is eucalyptus, that's for sure. Like, oh my word. This is hilarious. So typically I only pull out one tray at a time, and I am going to replace some sugar now since I can see the bottom in here, and we'll give it just a little bit more to coat. I really like using the organic sugar with the bigger granules just because I think it makes them look, you know, like more natural, I guess. So your preference though, sugar, I don't want to say sugar is sugar, but you know, it will work. And I do like, really, I guess, like speed method with this whole thing is to really try to pop them out. Push your finger directly in the center and don't worry about the fact that they might, you know, slightly stick together. Just really do it as fast as you can. I keep these things in the freezer. I don't know what minimal time you could keep them in the freezer, because typically I'll make a whole bunch of them and then like come back the next morning and do the sugaring portion, and then just depending, it might be like 2 to 3 days that I would have to let them sit on my drying dehydrating rack to get fully hard. I don't know if it's just like the water getting out of them, or the fact that like the sugar is on the outside and it'll get hard from just being in the air. But either way, in order for them to stay nice in the jars with this particular formula that I'm using, you need to do that. And I'm still, or actually no, I'm gonna go get some more, get another tray. So I am still working on putting less and less water in the initial mixture. That way it has less water in the overall end formula of it. And I have also, oh, I think I realized I had one of these like tabs on my floor the other day, and I think I now know where it came from because I just about broke that off. That's rather sad. So I just tweak it, you know, just a little bit, but this is a perfectly good formula to, you know, continue making them. And really the percentages that I'm adjusting it aren't that much, that so far I've had to like go through and make label changes because now the ingredients are in a different order. But I try to make the best notes that I can. For instance, like, you know, the doubling of the amount of sugar that I had in there. If I do too much more than that, then they don't come out as cleanly in the mold. And after my little experiment the other day with trying to just press the mixture into the mold with the spatula thing versus how I would typically do it and squeeze it in, I really don't like that because it's not getting into the corners good enough for it to fill out that mixture, because these are like perfect cubes. So it helps with consistency in the product. You know, if people see too, I mean, they're homemade, right? But if people see too much inconsistencies, then are they going to think like, I would never put that little amount in there, and be like, hi, this is counting as one of the 30 count cubes that are in there. Like, that's not cool. So the more consistent that you can be within a homemade product, I prefer that. So I will continue to painstakingly pipe them all into here. And once again, if you guys have a better suggestion, like, I'm all ears, or ear, since I only have one that works completely. So there's that. But I love these little things, and I sell a lot of them. And like, I mean, the cost point is pretty low because you can do a large amount of them at one time. So other than the fact that I do feel like freezer space, they definitely need to go in the freezer. Like, sometimes when I'm making a lot of them, I have an extra full refrigerator, and I will take that refrigerator and put some in there first. And then once all of my ones from the freezer have like done their time and I've taken them out, then I'll switch them in there. So that way it'll lessen the amount of time the other ones have to be in there. But they don't get cold enough to completely unmold well like this by just being in the refrigerator. And I mean, I don't know if you can kind of see now, like these ones that I'm doing are even starting to kind of break away a little bit more than as clean of a removal as what they were in the beginning. So you have to work quick, and don't hesitate to like throw the mold back into the freezer and start on another one, because when it comes to the mess at the end, it will be well worth it to just swap them out. So that is all for this part. And then all I have left to do is like put them into the jars. And I do like hand pack each one of them because I'm counting out that 30 of them. And I chose to do 30 simply because that's like exactly what fits into the jars I have. So they look full. And because of that, you can't just like count out 30 and like throw them in the jar, essentially. So once I get done with all of them, this tray can be like mounded up. It doesn't matter if they're sitting on top of there right now, where it would make a difference when you're reaching into the smaller jar that I package them in. I thought I had that jar over here, but I don't. They're easily squishable right now, and we need them to firm up just that tiny bit to get a crust on the outside, so that way in the jar that they're not going to all smush together. And I would also say this is definitely a product where you do not want to have sitting in the car, or like if you're in Texas or whatever, because they will soften. They can still use it, it just won't be scrub cubes. So I hope that helps, and have a great day.